Well, we're back at it.
We are back at it, Corey, and as we enter the fall, lots of interesting stuff going on. We've got Blue Jays are in, Senators are off
Go
to
Blue
a start.
Jays.
Yeah, it's. I think it's kind of a very magnetic time right now. It's the whole country is rallying for these guys. It's been fun to watch. I'm not a person to tune into baseball all the time, but to see that kind of energy is absolutely fantastic.
Oh, it's incredible. It's so amazing from a Canadian standpoint to have this go on, right? The entire country behind one team. When else does this happen, right?
Yeah.
So that's very exciting. Yep.
And certainly with things going on with the U.S. in the past year, there wouldn't be a better time to really win the World Series.
Is there things going on in the U.S. right now?
Is there? I think it is, and it's kind of affecting their markets a little bit.
Oh, there is things. Yeah, weird. Yeah, we're kind of like at all-time highs and stuff all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
Never ending.
Never ending.
Well, until it does. And then
Until it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Buy gold. Maybe. No, probably not. Probably not. Well, today we're joined by somebody who embodies what leadership through service really looks like. Carmen Abela is the founder and managing director of Windreach Consulting Services, an Ottawa-based firm specializing in public sector accountability. For nearly 30 years, she's been advising senior government leaders on governance, risk management, and internal audit, helping shape some of the best practices in the public sector oversight and operational excellence across Canada. Carmen's commitment to building public trust extends far beyond her business. She currently serves on several high-profile boards, including Atomic Energy of Canada, where she chairs the Human Resources and Governance Committee, and the Royal Ottawa Hospital Foundation, where she's the chair of the board and leads the Strategy and Governance Committee. She also serves as an elected public director with Colleges and Institutes Canada and has previously chaired national boards for both the Institute of Internal Auditors Canada and Immigrant Women's Services Ottawa. She's a chartered director, a certified internal auditor, and holds degrees from McGill and Carleton University. But beyond all of that, Carmen's heart is in the community. She's passionate about supporting organizations that make a real difference, especially in mental health. And she's currently leading a campaign to rally small businesses across Ottawa in support of the Royal Ottawa Foundation for Mental Health. Carmen lives here in Ottawa with her husband, Aaron, and is the proud mom of 3 grown kids. Carmen, we are so glad to have you on the show today.
Thank you. I'm really thrilled to be here.
Welcome.
I didn't really like the nearly 30 years of service, but yeah, I feel 29. But I'm
Of course.
Just stay 29, right?
super happy to be here, you guys. Really,
Thank you. Well, thanks for joining us. You've got a very exciting background and lots of great stuff as Corey has gone through. It's a very interesting story. I'd love to get to know and have a chance to hear more about how that started for you, Carmen. Like, how did that all begin?
Well, it's so interesting because I won't say I'm an accidental entrepreneur, but I'm definitely an unconventional entrepreneur. So you heard my background's in internal audit, maybe one of the most risk-averse professions you would find anywhere, next to maybe lawyer. And I didn't start out when I was studying to do any kind of business or entrepreneurial anything. My background's in political science and sociology at McGill, and then public administration at Carleton. So again, about the most unconventional start for an entrepreneur. And my intention was really to serve the public, either as an employee of the government, a leader in the government, or even consulting wasn't on my radar. Started at the Bank of Canada when I was quite young as an analyst, and accidents, and some people will call them luck. Some people will say serendipity. I happened to run into a friend. I had spoken at a conference, and she met me there and pulled me into the consulting world, first as a member of a firm, as an employee. Small, really, really good firm, small firm in Ottawa. And I started out there as just a practitioner and senior auditor, and really loved it. Loved the hustle, loved the problem solving. Initially, it was like, oh, I don't want to sell anything. I don't want to be a business development. That's not me. I don't want to, knock on doors and so on. But that caught me, surprisingly. And about 8 years later, I, had gotten I'd moved up nicely in the firm, national role, great team, loved the people I worked with, loved my clients. But the only way I can describe it is that I was a bit bored. I had this, and I just had a sense that things could be better, that I could be, doing more in a more exciting way with more flexibility. I didn't want to be an employee. And then, frankly, I didn't want to have employees. That was a big part of it. I wanted the flex, the hustle. And, as things go, when you're in a larger firm, you're, not surprisingly, it's part of the model, right? You're called upon to play the administrative role, which is different than the leadership role. I mean, that's part and parcel of it. And to get out of the solution orientation of clients, to get out of the direct roll up your sleeves. And that was what really was my jam. And so I think about this all the time, and I'm like, what was I doing? Exactly around the time that I left my husband, so my first marriage, I was a single mom. Child was in very expensive private school that I was paying for, and I was paying child support. And I'm like, still not having fun. Like,
So no pressure, really.
none. And I look back, Shawn, and I'm like, what was I thinking? Because as I say, I'm a fairly risk-averse person. And I said, it's got to be better. So I took a leap, and I had a couple of subcontracts rather. And I thought, well, I can make a go of this. I trust myself. And someone who is, as I say, risk-averse and frankly, maybe not always believing in myself, strangely enough. And I'm like, let's give it a go. So off I went and started my firm. And that was 15 years ago, almost 16 years ago. And I never look back. I love it. And I have a model. I intentionally chose a model that, some people might say, oh, you're an independent consultant. And actually, I got a lot of criticism for leaving, going, why are you leaving this model that you're in, this national role? Like, you're just going to be kind of a nobody. And see how much ego is wrapped into that decision and fear of that kind of obscurity. But I said, no, we're going to do something different. And so I don't have an employee-based model. I intentionally don't want that hassle, frankly. But I do work with people. So I have a model that is, I call it co-opetition. So I work a lot of the time alone for my clients, still in government, still in not-for-profit sector, doing exactly what you described, Corey, governance, risk management, internal audit. But I work collaboratively with other small businesses, other people like me, sometimes a little bit bigger, sometimes a little bit smaller. And my vision is, I get to have the operating environment I want. I get to make a good wage doing what I love. And I get to bring the best of my business community to my clients. So if told you my background, sociology, political science. Even though I'm in an audit, just don't ask me to do math. I don't like finance. It's not my thing. But I have a ton of great partners, collaborators who are experts in finance, experts in tech, experts in, different elements of risk. And I view the reality is we bring the best of our talent with humility, without too much ego. There's always ego, to the client. And I'm not going to be all things to all people, all singing, all dancing. But the client gets that better experience. And then we're not in competition, we're in co-opetition. We bring the best for the client. And
so you didn't want to take a risk because you're risk adverse.
But I did.
And you took a risk.
A few risks.
So let's just talk about that for 2 seconds.
Yep.
So the biggest problem for someone becoming an entrepreneur is taking a risk.
Yep.
So would you say that you had a catalyst that drove you to take risk?
That's such a good question. I would say that if there was a catalyst, and it sounds really benign and kind of self-indulgent in a way. It's like I wasn't having fun.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly, I had a vision, and ironically, interestingly, that it happened at the same time as my divorce. It was the same thing that led me, in my mind, a very, very clear vision that there could be something better than what I have. And this again, maybe isn't the catalyst issue, but I had a kind of a model that I had as I was thinking about it. An equilateral triangle. I told you I don't do math, but I do know geometry. That was like, okay, I want to make a good wage. I want to do interesting intellectual work. I want to be challenged, and I don't want to do, boring stuff. And I want to have fun. And I was always of the view that if you had those three forces or those three angles in the triangle perfectly equal, that's your game. And what I was finding was it wasn't. It was more, I don't know if it was an isosceles triangle or a rhombus or some weird polygon shape, but it wasn't what I was loving. And I was really tapping into, and I at the time didn't spend a lot of time thinking about my value. What do I value? What is, which I do now with working with a coach and my psychologist. But if I look back, that's exactly what I was doing, to say, what really gets you up in the morning? And I was finding I was out of alignment with that. Life is short. I was at the time 36, 37.
I thought we were sticking with 29.
I was 29 and a few years older than that. So that was probably it. It was this deep sense of I was out of alignment with what I really wanted to do. Serendipitously, because again, I didn't have a master 10-year plan. Never did. That's something I would tell anyone. Don't worry about plans. But I instinctively knew that there was something missing and I could make it better somehow.
So it really ignited a fire, ignited your passion. Was it also upbringing? Was your values earlier on in your life as a child? Is that also like going to leak into how you, some of your character?
Yeah, it's such a good, well, yes, the easy answer is yes. So another part of my origin story is, and it's such a double-edged sword in my world as a consultant because, so I'm a product of immigrant parents. So my mom came from Ireland in the 50s. My dad he's Egyptian-born Lebanese immigrant, came to Canada at the same time. In the 50s, immigration, and maybe it's the same now, I don't know, but both my parents came with nothing, a huge sense of purpose, reliance on self, commitment to education, and so on. And so I think, they can't say my parents were maybe they were my mentors, but that experience as an immigrant child was the most formative experience, positively and negatively, that affected how I work, even when I was an employee. And I would say from two perspectives. Number one, and this is very much the immigrant vibe, you can do anything you want. You just have to work hard enough. Hustle, get it done, discipline, motivation. My dad was an engineer and he was, he was very, I would say strict, but like high expectations, right? My mom was more on the loving side, but also had very high expectations. So there was that really positive force to say, there's nothing you can't do, And even as a girl, my sister and I both would be the same. She's also a consultant, would say, we were kind of raised like boys back in the 70s. Like there was nothing, we weren't princesses. It was like we were out doing shingling roofs and doing things for my dad. And so that was really formative. But at the same time, and that helped, right? Because in the ups and downs of entrepreneurship or life, and we'll talk about that a little bit, the positive side of that is, I got this. I don't need someone to take care of me. I can do it, So it's a really empowering vibe. This also has a negative side, which we can talk about later. But the other element was perfection. You must be perfect. And this is very, very typical again of immigrant kids from certain cultures and backgrounds, mostly my dad. And so, again, one of my dear friends who is also a consultant, got lots of consultant friends, once told me, the best consultants were the kids that were told they were never good enough. Because you are always trying to please. You're always into quality. You're always making sure the client understands or gets what they want. And again, double-edged sword, right? Like it was really, I think one of my key differentiators, I don't want to sound too egotistical, but I would say if you ask my clients, I go the extra mile because it has to be perfect for you. And that was one of the things, not to take anything away from the firm that I was with, But that's the thing with the model that I was in before, where you by definition with a big firm, it's got to be a leveraged model, and it's got to be somewhat kind of cookie cutter methodology. This is the corporate way, and this is how we're going to do it. And I think what was taking me, getting me a little frustrated was that's not what the client needs. You know, the client needs something different. So that goal of helping to understand what the problem is that needs to be solved, how can I make it better? How can I, you know, serve that unique need is, I think, a big differentiator.
To help make someone, hey, I want to help you.
Exactly. And, it's not like your consultant steals your watch to tell you the time kind of thing. I hated that. The integrity of some, frankly, consulting firms that will remain nameless it's not my thing. I want it to be completely opposite of that and set my own kind of values, which really are about, certainly excellence is in there, difference making, contribution. And because I'm in the public business, public administration business, public trust, supporting organizations that do good work for society, for humanity, and for people. So all of those good influences, have a really strong kind of effect, but as we could talk about later, also have the potential to, really undercut your mental health at some point,
It's a lot of pressure.
Puts a lot of pressure, and
high bar.
You're never going to be perfect. No one's going to be perfect. No. So we have to recalibrate. And I spent a lot of time recalibrating, going, okay, and maybe inspired by my daughter, who was a big reason for my work at the Royal, maybe it's about excellence and not perfection. Like, let yourself off the hook. Don't kill yourself trying to achieve some unattainable goal. But part of the weirdness about being an entrepreneur is that that's kind of the hustle. Like, that's kind of the joy, right? It's like, what more can I do? How much better can I be?
It feels like those are mutually exclusive. You have to do both, and you don't have to do both.
That's right. And it's a question of balance, because it is, as I say, on the one hand, it's the secret of my success. In the other hand, it's something I have to keep an eye on all the time, because, you can get sick, or you can drive people away, and in your life, it throws your life out of balance. And I've taken some measures over the course of my career. I think about when I first started the company, single mom. My daughter at the time was 7 or 8, and I knew that this was going to be hard on her, and so I got up in the morning at 3:30, 4:30 in the morning to do client work, so that she didn't see me working those hours, and then my evenings were hers. So you try these things to strike balances, again with the greatest of intention. It's risked me burning out, but in my mind that was the right thing to do, and so it's wouldn't have to do that probably if I was in a firm, but because it was on my shoulders and it was my goal, that's what I
think as all of us are guilty at times of believing we can accomplish more than we can in a day, in a week, in a month, in a year. And I say to people all the time, including myself, I have to remind myself, why not just do 1% better on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah.
Right? Why beat yourself up, oh, I didn't get this project completed, or this wasn't done. It's okay.
Yeah.
The world keeps turning.
Yeah.
You have to cut yourself some slack.
Yeah. Super hard when you're oriented from birth.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up with a lot of love in my family. My dad's no longer with us, but he was an amazing man and a great influence. But when you're hardwired, and again, it's like it's a gift, but it's also like, oh my God, agony half the time. To me, when you say, oh, you get cut, lazy. You're lazy. You're not good enough. And it's so interesting. Like, I recently took a sabbatical, 3 months, small mini sabbatical, to actually to plan out my future entrepreneurial environment. What am I going to do with my firm, and what's next? And the biggest challenge for me was doing nothing and working in an unstructured environment. I mean, my initial thought was, I need outcomes for this sabbatical. I need a plan. I need daily activities. I need, I'm going to book my meditation in my calendar. I'm going to book my, it's typical me. And it took me about a month to be comfortable, Corey, doing exactly what you were, like, the same is sitting down on my patio with a novel, not, I can read business books all day. This is great. No, I'm going to read a novel and I'm going to have a nap and I'm not going to feel guilty. And one of the goals of that sabbatical was to rewire my brain that way. 30 years into my profession, into my practice, into my consulting world career. And it, it took that, and very uncomfortable sitting in that. But it is so important because otherwise you're going to get sick or you're really not doing anything.
If you don't take care of yourself, no one else will in this world.
Yeah.
And you will fall apart, right?
Like it's
body inevitable. You must recharge. You must give yourself that time and space. And sometimes you got to be selfish with your time too, right? And you just got to cut it out and shut it down, right? You have to. Yeah. And
the sky doesn't fall in, I think, as you said. Like you realize it's almost like, and I'm a better parent for all of this now. Because I'm now able to say to my daughter, who's now 24, mind you, don't worry about it if you didn't get into your university of choice, even though she did. But that was the panic, right? The world will be fine. You will be fine. Don't, chill. Sure. The sky won't fall in. And then almost say, like, encourage yourself and others to go, if, and I'm going to put in air quotes, fail. If something fails, if you're reaching that perfection, sit in it. Yeah. Sit in it, acknowledge it, and guess what? Learn from it that I'm fine. And but that hard wiring, and I think I know I'm talking to two men, but I think women are harder in that regard because we tend to want to hold, and women business leaders, because you're kind of, can't say I've had a lot of barriers because of my gender, but there have been some. But there's a certain expectation.
There's more challenge.
There's more challenge. There's more expectation, and especially moms who are. I'm no longer a single mom, but at the time, you're like, it all is on these shoulders, and they're broad, but not that broad. So yeah.
So your parents raised this high performer, without any plan. It was like obviously these things were passed along to you. High bar of expectation. Didn't stereotype you, so they just, like, the sky was the limit. That's great. That's great formula for you, Carmen. So for you, and we're talking a little bit about your children, but what's the most important values that you've tried to instill on them? What do you want to look back on and say, you know what, I'm really glad I gave them these 2 or 3 ingredients?
Yeah, so I would say maybe 2 things. I would say, and it probably reflects some of how I was raised, but maybe not all. Hard work, number 1. So to go back to that, don't be lazy. Hold yourself accountable. Like your life is a gift, and you've got all the capacity in the world, and everyone has different capacity and different limits, but don't sit on the sidelines. Roll your sleeves up, make your way, and probably in that is some degree of self-reliance and independence. But the other thing that I would say that I hope I am leaving with them, and maybe hopefully doing this through example, is contribution. That we are so blessed in this country and in our city, and with, an accident of birth. And maybe, again, that's sort of a reflection of the fact that my parents didn't have, when they came to Canada with not a lot. We almost have an obligation to give back, if you can, in whatever way. It doesn't have to be money. I mean, ideally it's money, or when you're capable, it should be money, but your time and your interest and thinking outside of yourself, like you are it's going to sound so esoteric and whatever, but like you're a vessel for change in your society, and keep your eyes on people who don't have the benefit that you have. I can still make a ton of money, but one of my corporate values is, I'm in this to make money and to obviously improve my clients' experience and all that stuff. But I'm an entrepreneur. I don't have I take a salary, but that's not an employee. So I don't want to sound like Mother Teresa here. It's just very fundamentally my goal. As one of those triangle pieces is my wage, my income. But it's not all about that. You know, we gotta sort of look beyond that to see how can we help raise profile of certain causes, or donate money, or donate time, or
Well, there's a lot of value built into any entrepreneur or any business owner. Clearly, it wasn't always about money, because early on, we know that those challenges are high, and you're not receiving value back yet for the work that you're putting in.
Yeah.
And we've interviewed enough business owners and entrepreneurs to know that sometimes those challenges can be extreme. They can be very difficult emotionally. They can impact you physically. I'm sure those challenges have come up for you. It wasn't like now when we look at your resume and where you're at, you're clearly a successful person, and people who would use you as a mentor to say, I want to be like that.
Yeah.
But can you share with us times when it was a little harder? It was a little harder for you, a little darker. It was like it probably didn't look as nice.
Yeah. Right at the beginning, although I was maybe pumped up on adrenaline and vision that this can be. But if I look back now, it's like there were times when I was dragging my butt back home and going, I don't know if I can buy milk for my daughter. Like the cash flow was, because as I said, I had all these, it was my choices, right? Private school, child support to my ex-husband, and a crippling mortgage in Rockcliffe, because I wanted to keep my daughter close to her dad. So from a financial perspective, it was, that for sure at the beginning was like, okay, we're going to eat breakfast for dinner again. We're going to have eggs and bacon. And Kennedy knew, she's to this day, she still talks about how fun that was. So there was definitely a financial element there. One of the other things I talked to you about being risk averse. Before I jumped into my own company, I'm a risk management practitioner. I did a whole risk assessment. What could go wrong? And I knew that if I analyzed it 10 ways to Sunday, I'd be fine if I could accept those risks. But one of the interesting risks that I did identify, and I always kind of thought it was rather inspired, was a loneliness risk. It's lonely being an entrepreneur, especially for a company like my model, where it was just me with, and that's why I wanted to work with other business owners, not just subcontractors that did, piecework, but people who had skin in the game themselves, not just for their technical acumen and their knowledge for the client benefit, but because they were my people. And that was a specific intention to manage that lonely at the top. I don't have a boss to go and say, and that included on matters of cash flow and business development, but it also was in relation to, man, we got a big problem. How do I solve this with a client? Where when I was part of a firm, it was, I could haul my team into it, take out the whiteboard and draw some pictures and get that kind of energy from other people. And I didn't have that. And that for me, because it's a business about my brain, and my brain is a pretty good brain, but it needs an ecosystem both from a social perspective and talking to a community. And that's why this notion of co-opetition was so important to me, that we're like, we're going to work this as a community, where it makes sense, where it's possible, and we can share the winnings and bring the best to the client. But that loneliness factor was something that I was really acutely aware of. I was in my little office in my house, didn't want a bricks and mortar thing, didn't think that was a good use of my money, just for the sake of saying you had an address somewhere. But yeah, I would say those two things with the financial, and then once it takes off, and you're like, I don't need to have breakfast for dinner anymore.
Right.
So that then is, really.
So in the moment where you're not sure whether you're going to be able to buy milk or pay the mortgage, what would you say to someone that is starting out right now? What's your advice when that moment will happen for them?
Yeah. I'd say go back to those original values. And if you did a risk assessment like I did, go back to the reason why you thought you could handle those risks. And I think it to me, I said I don't do deep planning and long-term planning, but I guess I did do that, right? I did kind of go think of all the shit that can happen. Can I say that?
Oh,
Of course you can.
Okay.
I know. It's good.
Think of all the bad things that can happen and ask yourself, are you willing? like honestly, unvarnished, are you willing to live with this? And because I had done that, it wasn't a surprise to me. It was, okay, go back to that inner vision that, that you knew could be better. Okay. So, and for me, because I'm such a nerd and actually I think because I had done this all my life, I put myself through school and ran out of money many times under different circumstances. It's like, okay, what's the plan? Roll up the sleeves. What can you give on? What's absolutely critical, and so on. But so there's tactical things that you can do, like eating breakfast for dinner all the time. Like,
We used to call it Rice Week.
Rice Week or macaroni and tomatoes. Yeah. So it's that. But for me, I mean, the real thing I would say to someone who was in that situation is remember why you were doing this. Keep going. And if you can't tolerate it, then you can't tolerate it, and don't kill yourself for it either, and don't harm your family. But if you really were, and I was committed to a clear vision that this is something pretty special that we could build, then stick with it, suck it up. That's where you got this. Actually you can.
It's not unusual that with a lot of successful people, we're seeing a huge correlation between like the pain they've experienced, the values, so you were talking about that earlier, and just their drive.
Yeah.
Because they just know they've come from scarcity, they've experienced some awful things, but they really believe in themselves.
Yeah.
And they believe in where they're going. So they just don't stop. And time and time again, this does come up. This kind of flows up. So it is interesting.
I have a funny story, and I will say the person I'm telling the story about will probably hear this and know that it was him. He was one of my dearest friends, and was a former boss of mine. When I was his employee, he was doing my performance review, and at the firm, and the feedback was, you're kind of like a Labrador, like the dog.
Okay.
Labradors eat, and if you give them endless amounts of food, they will get sick. And I'm like, I'm the Labrador here. It's like, you're driven. You're so driven. I'm like, yeah, I am. Yeah. But it was that eating, and it was interesting because he was a really good businessman as well, still is. It was that you're gonna get sick. You're always you're trying to do too much. And I'm like, but that's the joy.
You're a hand raiser. Every time someone says,
totally. Has I got a problem? I'll take it on. Or I want to learn that. Can I do that?
Sure.
And it was, you're a Labrador. You're going to get sick if you, and I know his interest was mine, and he wanted to make sure I was okay and kind of temper me. But it was when he said, but you're so driven. I'm like, yeah, I am. And that's not a disease. That's not a pathology. This is actually, and that was one of the moments where I'm like, yeah, we're out of alignment with that.
Some ways it can be really a strength, and then sometimes it can really work against you.
Yeah.
So on that, like where I know that you're doing a lot of work because the mental health is a big topic, and this is a love and passion for you. Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about how you're dedicating time and effort there?
I will, and I'll give you another origin story that explains my my commitment to the Royal. My commitment to boards generally, but my commitment to the Royal, it came out of two things. I think one of my corporate values is contribution and public good. And so I'm always looking for boards and organizations that I can serve that play this, uniquely protective advancement kind of role for society and our community. But, and I have her permission to talk about this. My daughter Kennedy, just before she was going to university, she went off to Queen's, was diagnosed with major depressive disorder and anxiety. And it was a brutal time for her and a brutal time for me. And I learned a ton. She learned a ton. She wasn't hospitalized at the Royal, but it was the most traumatic experience I could have as a mom, and and that's just me, her mental health was brutal. And, frankly, we almost lost her. And so as an entrepreneur, as a can-do kind of person, it was, okay, first priority, make sure she's taken care of, and she got good care, and she's doing very well. And she's helping me on this campaign that we're going to talk about. God bless her. And, but the second was, okay, how can I turn this into something good? How can I use this as a springboard to do something, and I think also probably help me gain a bit of control. So I'm being quite candid. This isn't all altruistic. This was like me trying to put my arms around this thing by making a difference. So I got involved in the Royal on the board a few years ago, and I put my hand up, and now I'm the chair. So that's fine. But one of the things, I mean, to take it more to the point of what I'm doing and really want to raise awareness of right now with small business is for my 15th anniversary of Windreach, I donated $15,000, $1,000 for every year that I've been in business to the foundation, to the Royal. And I was just going to hand over a check to Chris Ide, who's our foundation CEO, and he's like, we could use this as seed money to amplify some other people in the community. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? That's a great idea. So what I have done, we've put together a campaign that we're launching that will the proposition is a win-win-win situation. So win number one, we want to raise $150,000 for the foundation. So that because, and we could talk about the Royal, it is an amazing organization. It's gone through a lot of difficult times recently, has had a lot of really important improvements, but they are doing God's work in terms of helping Ottawa and the community. So that's priority number one, raise money. But I also want to raise attention on the power of small business, that we're small, right? So we kind of fly under the radar, and you usually see the big sponsorships with the big firms, the big corporate donations and the names on the side of buildings when they donate billions or millions of dollars. But the little guys fly under the radar, and they actually, many of them do tremendous work in the community. So I want to raise the profile of the power of small business as not only contributors to the economy, which of course we are. We're small and medium-sized businesses are a huge generator of jobs and economic growth, but we're also at the front lines of our community, number one. Right. So I want to raise that, give those firms that will be participating, and I've got a few amazing firms that are helping me with donations, including Istivda. Thank you very much. We're so excited to have you guys.
Very pleased.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, and also I guess maybe as part of the profile raising is not only acknowledge the social good and the community good that companies like mine do, but also raise the awareness that it's a tough gig, right?
Right.
And demystify or destigmatize some of the things that not only small business owners go through, but we're just a microcosm of everybody else. So the campaign that we've got is starting with you guys is basically a series over a course of about 6 months. We're doing a series of awareness posts, videos. I don't know what I would call them. This is going to be one of them that it'll be me interviewing various different business owners on a different angle of mental illness and addiction or mental health that kind of lay bare the reality of some topics. So we want to just take the curtain down and say, we're not superhuman. Take the cape off. We're human. We've got men's mental health, which I want to talk to you about. I'm going to turn the tables on. Men's mental health, unique issues of women's mental health, challenges of entrepreneurship, challenges of perfectionism in high performance individuals. We've got an amazing consultant that's going to talk about that. And a couple of different angles on the connection between mental and physical health that we want to just get out there and, as I say, raise all those boats of both the companies that are doing great work, part of an extension of my co-opetition vision. And they're all, I should say, very importantly, all of those companies are donating funds and will amplify to their business communities. We're going to have a big party with a whole bunch of other business, hopefully very generous donors to fill that pot. So
I think you make a good point there. It's like you said this earlier when we first started was help how you can. So I think sometimes when you're talking about that, I'm thinking you're right. There is a lot of times when we look at much bigger companies, you think, oh, someone else has got this. Yeah. They're going to look after us. Yeah. But to your point, small business, especially here in our own community, we do have a bit of a role to play. And if we come together, it can make a big difference. Yeah. Even, and again, I'll highlight, help how you can. It might not be the same as the person next to you or the business down the street because they might have a different means.
Yeah. Yeah.
But whatever you can do, it certainly really makes a huge difference. And I know even for myself, like when you're talking about mental health, and it certainly has come up in my own life. I have some personal stories from my previous background before finance
Yeah.
I'd be willing to share. So I know it's a passion you have, and we're really glad as a firm to be able to help you with
Yeah.
this.
Well, we're really, really, really grateful. And if it's, I want to come back to you in a second, Shawn, but if it, just to finish that point around helping how you can, you know, we're all very connected in our environment. So if you can't give me 10 grand, you can put me in touch with someone who can give me 10 grand or 100 grand or whatever,
Right.
or again, part of this is sort of like we were talking about business. It's not all about money.
Right.
It's about getting the message to the street. And it's about, like, I did one posting, which I thought was really benign and simple, about me being tired once I came back from my sabbatical, put it on LinkedIn. And the number of people, mostly men, interestingly, so we'll use that as a segue to go back to the men's mental health, who called me and said, thank you for putting that out there. Because I'm the one with the cape and the perfect, I got it all my shit together. But by bringing that vulnerability to it, and it was really about, I'm tired and I'm grumpy and I'm out of my alignment with my values. And I'm not sure I want to be back at work and I'm kind of sad. The number of men that reached out to me and said, you know what, that gave me permission to talk about this. So let's talk. So, and that's maybe where I would turn the tables with you, Shawn, to say, and Corey as well, if you have anything, any other experiences, to say, like,
Oh, there's lots going
what?
on. Trust me. Yeah.
Well, we're human, right? But there's this, and I don't want to over stereotype men, but there's this, caretaker, protector, hunter gatherer
Yes.
kind of
Yeah,
persona that I think you grow up in,
that's right.
that maybe limits your ability to kind of go, oh man, I need help.
It's kind of
maybe,
hardwired in your DNA. It's like you're
yeah,
at one point, you feel like you're meant to be fighting woolly mammoths,
yeah,
and then, you're maybe picking up the groceries or you're helping out, and which is what's we should be doing.
yeah,
But then it's like, how do you deal with all the stresses and get that out? Because we're no longer running through the field. We're no longer, venting the same way that our ancestors used to.
that's right.
But then also having the vulnerability that it's okay. It's okay to talk about these things. You can be strong and vulnerable at the same time.
Yeah,
And I think that's the hardest part. Like the best thing I ever got on, and my spouse was one that kind of directed me to read, is Brené Brown.
I
Like
know, love her.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Like it's a real eye opener for someone who's, if you've not taken the time to read Brené Brown, then I'd highly recommend it. Being vulnerable and the impact shame can have on each of us.
Yeah,
So that's what got me started on this, was just kind of a slow segue, because I found out it was stresses were popping up in my life, in my own home. I was bringing it in unintentionally, but I have a significant amount of baggage that I was been carrying around my whole life that doesn't belong in my house. It doesn't belong in my workplace.
yeah,
We're running a great firm. We're growth minded. I need to be showing up at my best, both for my spouse, for my children, and for my teammates. So I need to really kind of work on what's happening with this baggage from other parts of my life. And I'll even name some of those. Like some of those come from I experienced an awful trauma with my uncle's suicide. I was just finishing policing. I was a career 8 years with OPP as I was a patrol officer. I worked for the explosive disposal unit at times for a couple of years, and I also worked intensively with their underwater search and recovery unit. I was explosively trained underwater diver, but also did body recovery, and we were doing probably in the numbers of about 100 body recoveries a year, all throughout the province of Ontario. Like there's 20,000 lakes here. There's lots of places and ways that people get in trouble. Plane crashes, boating accidents, drownings, homicides. And on an average, Ontario, we lose a lot more to water than we expect, but the recovery unit does about 150 to 200 body recoveries a year.
Right.
And so you have, men and women who are assigned to that unit that travel all over the province of Ontario doing these recoveries. And I was one of those for about 4 years. So saw some incredible trauma, but also this suicide of my uncle when I just finished my career. He had reached out, was going through some mental health issues, but was reaching out for someone to be there for him and to care. And I was. And we would talk daily for months. And I think I was the only one in the family that really knew what he was going through, because he'd asked me to kind of keep that quiet because he was suffering. And then the suicide happened. And I felt like the gatekeeper, that I should have done something differently. And there really wasn't a lot more I could have done, because I didn't know to what extent that suffering was. But it was really hard. It was hard to process. It was hard to manage. Anyone who's ever had a suicide in their family is going to know it really does impact and last a long time. But I carried that like a big suitcase, a big emotional suitcase. And I carried all the suitcases that I was carrying from the traumas I saw, the plane crashes, the boating accidents, these terrible situations that I was witness to. You carry that around. And it takes a little bit of purposeful effort, and for me, it was a slow it was a slow drip, because it was attention that I was able to bring to it through conversations with my spouse, to be able to say, hey, this is areas that were piling up, and it was just through healthy small changes in my lifestyle. So in the last few years, I really kind of leaned in on that. Some of that was being part of a kind of a men's accountability group, so that we're kind of just there for each other, just checking in, like, how are you making out? Let's talk about that. Or, adding some mindfulness and meditation to my life. But I think, for me, there was lots of, like Corey is mentioning, lots of stuff piles up. That was what I was piling up. And I really needed to address that. And I'm still addressing it, and I won't stop addressing it. But it was being vulnerable enough and find a way to be able to talk about it. But I found it very difficult before that. And I know that there's somebody who's most likely experiencing the same thing, where they don't feel like they can speak about it. They see and feel things, and they maybe can't name them yet, but it probably needs to be addressed.
So what do you tell someone that is in that space? How do you encourage men who maybe aren't at the stage of the journey of wellness that you are, because you certainly seem very grounded, even though it's a continuous journey. How do you work or encourage men to be vulnerable, to not just shove it all down, because that's dangerous. Because that stigma's heavy, right? It's heavy for everybody,
Sure.
But I think it's pretty heavy for men.
I think it's tough. I think it's just about sharing. I think we need to be vulnerable, because I feel like the more that we're vulnerable, and, for Corey and I, the more I can talk about some of the stuff that's bothering me, then it's easier for Corey, and we can banter and talk about it even in private. But for men in the community, if no one steps forward to share the stories, then others don't see that it's okay. And it doesn't make it easy for them, because they feel like they're the only ones suffering. I'll give an example. As when I was policing, we had gone to this terrible plane crash. It was probably one of the worst things that I've ever seen. It was 12 people had died in this plane crash in Lake Erie, actually. And it was some of the stuff that I saw during that next 3 weeks of recovery, I'll never forget. And they've left very deep images and sounds and smells that your body was never meant to witness and see. So immediately after that plane crash and our work there, I was sitting around in a room full of other police officers. Some of them were people I worked with, but then some were other police officers who I knew from just knowing who their reputation was, that they'd also seen some awful things in their career, albeit different. So I had approached in this room, there's about, let's say, 8 to 10 police officers, and I was trying to be vulnerable. So I said, hey, like at that point in time, it was probably a month or two after this plane crash. And I just said, hey, I'm having some difficulty sleeping. Like, I'm waking up in the middle of the night. I've got some funny feelings that I'm not experienced before. And that's my body doing funny things, because it was not used to, or shouldn't have, ever seen and smelt, heard some of the stuff that I had experienced. So I said that to this room. Hey, this is how I'm feeling. Anybody else feel like that at all? And I asked this one particular very seasoned officer, like, I knew that had gone through some terrible experiences. Hey, when you went through your terrible experiences, did anything like this pop up? And straight out, everyone in that room was like, no, that's never happened to us. That gentleman's like, no, never. So I felt I felt really different. Like something was wrong. Like maybe it's just me. My wiring is different than everybody else's.
Well, that's a fact, but
Yeah, that's true. Well, maybe that is true. Yeah. So then as I'm leaving and I'm walking down the hallway back to my hotel room because we were out of town, an officer followed me and followed me down the hallway. And he says, "Hey, I heard what you were asking." He goes, "I just want to let you know, I feel the same way. I'm having these issues too."
Yeah.
So in that moment, I realized there's a lot of people who aren't talking about the way they feel,
Yeah.
you know, and because if that's happened to that one person who was brave enough to follow me down the hallway and tap me on the shoulder, that I knew probably there was other men in that room that also didn't want to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And again, so, you know, fast forward, I mean, it does take people to stand forward and say that. And I have to give a great deal of kudos to a really good friend of mine, Ryan Carey, because Ryan was on this podcast. And Ryan was strong enough to share how he's been impacted and the progressive change he's making, and gave routes to men like myself to say, this is how you can get behind this. So it was like through efforts like Ryan
Yeah.
that I was able to now, hey, reach out and say, hey, like, let's talk a bit about just about living more mindfully, making positive change, efforts you can make in your day to day. So that made it, Ryan's efforts in the way he held himself in his community and his life made a difference to me.
Yeah.
And then I hope that even just sharing something like this with you today might make a difference to someone else. And I don't expect it's just going to be me and Ryan. It's also going to be other people who stand forward and say, and it doesn't, again, just like your donations, it doesn't have to be a lot. It can just be simply, it's what you can.
Yep.
I think what you can becomes so important. So if you just want to share like, hey, I feel sometimes like that as well.
Yeah.
I think to other men, that makes a big difference because it allows room for another man to say, okay, great, you know, can I chat? And we've had success because there's been people in my life that I knew were experiencing difficulty that I said, hey, we've got this men's accountability group. Did you want to participate in this? And the answer usually is no. It's not like, it's because it's like, I feel like there's a roadblock. Like, no, I'm not, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And it's like, we're not doing anything except for just saying, hey, did you get your run in? Did you meditate? How are you feeling? Like, it's really just meant to be a positive influence. It took a lot for someone to say, you know what, maybe I will consider that. And when they did, I felt like we saw some really great growth in that person, you know, and things that were positively happening for them. So from that, I really strongly believe that good communication and vulnerability is the way to connect more men on this topic.
Yeah. There's a couple things that I would take away from that. The first is it's a redefinition of courage. Right? Because, you know, men, courageous, brave,
Right.
got all their shit together. And what you're talking about, and it's in Brene Brown's work as well, is that vulnerability, is that bravery in the face of that discomfort, is a different kind of discomfort, but it is absolutely a critical. So for you, you talk about the courage of the guy who came and tapped you on the shoulder, but your courage in the first place to raise it. You know, I think it's really noteworthy, and realizing that, and I'm so happy that even though no one said anything, you knew that something was wrong and you kept kind of moving forward on that. The other thing is, and it maybe goes back to this whole campaign around small business, but it's a leadership. It's a hugely important definition of leadership, which is setting a tone and redefining, you know, what is important and leading by example. You know, not walk the talk. And I see this all the time in my clients and in my family. Oh yeah, we support mental health. We allow for diversity. Whatever the issue is, it's the tone and it's the mantra that everyone uses. But as soon as, you know, that person or someone close to them is unwell or struggling, it's like, you know, we don't want to go there. It's sort of an untouched. It's getting much better, but we have to walk the talk, right, as leaders, and through things like your podcast, through even just your daily business and your friendships. It doesn't always have to be money, as you say, but having the courage to come forward and lead by example, I think is really critical. One question, and I know you have daughters, but you have a stepson as well.
Yes.
I have a stepson as well, and a nephew. Most of my progeny are girls. What do you tell young guys? Like, because this is a generation, we talk about hardwiring from my very young age, but we're redefining manhood in some ways. And I
Sure.
think that's a really good thing. It doesn't mean you're neutered as a man. It doesn't mean,
Right.
but like, is there something we can do with young men and young boys?
I think there is. I really do, and it's a really good point, right? And it doesn't mean that what we did in the past. Well, I don't want to be critical of, how my dad raised me or how my grandfather raised my dad, or etc. I think we only know what we know at the time. But we certainly, as fathers and mothers, we've redefined how to communicate with our children, and particularly, how a father might raise their son, and the values. Because if we're talking about this transfer, even my daughters, like I think I've raised the children very similarly as far as values, because I didn't want to stereotype just like your parents didn't. So I was like, great, I see them as equals, and tried to open up the limit and say, hey, sky's the limit, do whatever you want. I probably overdid that only because my daughters both live out in the West Coast now. Yeah. So that's what happens. You spend 20 years saying, hey, kids, you can do whatever you want.
And then they leave.
Sky's the limit. They're like, you know what? Good idea, Dad.
Whoops.
So, but I think what I've tried to, when I look at my own discussions, and again, no criticism to my dad, because again, he loved me the way that he was shown how to love a son. But there's no way in the world that my dad and I would ever talk about mental health or how I was going to deal with it, or how he would deal with it, etc. It was a lot of arm's length type of thing. Well, he was a firefighter and saw some terrible things, but I knew that all of those terrible things, he would have to deal with those on his own, and he certainly wasn't going to involve his family or share that he was suffering, at times. What I've tried to do with my own children is to just let them know that I am at times suffering, that I have had challenges, that it's okay to go see a psychologist, and I have, and I've shared that with them, because I feel like it sets the example to say, hey, when you have these challenges in life, it's okay. It just means it's a challenge, and then there's life, professionals there that are there to help you.
Yep.
And what I took from that, or what that journey or that opportunity was, this is an opportunity for me to share with my children a value. It's like it's to be, again, show them that it's okay to be strong, but then also be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And if I could teach my kids that, it's a win for me.
And one of the other things I think with mental health is mental health is health, right? But there has been such a stigma over the course of it to say, and I will be very candid. I struggled with this when Kennedy was diagnosed. I was like, if there were mental health issues in our family, and there were, I lost my brother-in-law to suicide a number of years ago, but it wasn't a part of our lexicon. It's societally. Right? So I actually, when Kennedy started going through problems, I actually got my psychologist to work. I had already been seeing her on other issues, but as my technical advisor, I consider her as a consultant to say, I have never mothered somebody through this. I don't know. It's not intuitive to me.
Right.
And I actually reached out for help so that I could be a better help for Kennedy, and that I could not mess this up. There's one shot to help her get through all this stuff. So that kind of that advice, and part of the advice my psychologist gave me was, when you see Kennedy, and major depressive disorder is brutal. Like she couldn't get out of bed some days, and it was just, God love her. I think about the pain she was in, the psychic pain she was in, and my psychologist was saying, okay. Thankfully, Kennedy was living at home at the time, and she said, just go up in her room and lie down with her. Bring her a cup of tea and lie down with her. And don't have any expectations. Whereas, because of the way I was raised and because of the way I operate, it's like, come on, up you go.
Action plan.
Let's go. Open the curtains.
Right.
What are we going to do today? We're going to go see the doctor. We're going to do And Kennedy's like, Mom, please just stop. And the best advice was, the most counterintuitive for me was, show her that sit with her, meet her where she is.
Right.
And I always use the analogy, I'm a big nature lover, big bird lover, that, if you put your hands out with seed, birds will land. on your hands. And then you could, have the joy of that. But if the bird lands and you clench your fist, guess what's you're gonna kill the bird. It's
You're
gonna fly
walking around
away.
the forest. You're like, here, land,
Yeah,
here, land. It's
exactly.
not happening.
It's not gonna happen. So that advice and I'm like, well, that's not a very action-oriented solution. Like, cuddle up and lie under the covers with her and just kind of let her sleep. No, and she's like, yep. And it's gonna be hard for you because you're that. And I'm in some ways a lot like a man. You got to get shit done. You got to have a plan. Roll up your sleeves.
Right.
What's the strategy? How are we going to do it? Get a walk, whatever. And it was actually, no, sit in it and meet her where she is. And it's the greatest advice I would give people, but it is so counterintuitive to how we were wired.
It is.
So to be able to show that with the next generation and not, or fight those not demons, but fight those gremlins inside that say, this is tantamount to laziness. We're giving into this. Is the initial instinct. It's like, no. You're meeting her where she is, and you're giving her a safe place to land. And what happened? Sure enough, the bird landed. And then it was like, I need to talk to you. And then on her pace, in her way, and as you said, and I think it's another important thing for you to highlight, that you highlighted, is baby steps. As entrepreneurs, we're like, we've got a plan and we've got big swing for the fences, and you know what? This is incremental. It's
right.
and it's backsliding, even like business, right? Like you make a bunch of headway and you have a bad situation, or something happens or something falls through. But being committed to that pathway, but in reasonable incremental steps, goes a long way. You're not gonna have major success overnight.
And now she's down the road. She's also advocating for change. She's like, sure. What a positive, great story.
Yeah, she is. And again, speaking of giving in your own way, I mean, she's just starting out. She's working at the John Howard Society and now as a counselor as a support worker for youth. And this is a big thing for her. And her greatest contribution is using her voice. And as I said, I had her permission to talk about her story, but she will be one of the speakers in this campaign.
Wonderful.
She's going to be, this is my story. This is how bad it was. This is what worked. This is why. As I said, she wasn't a patient of the Royal. She did seek some support in different ways from them. But for her as a young woman to step out and show that kind of courage, that's her contribution. That's her. And she's working in a field right now with mental illness among kids and is looking actually to start getting more involved in philanthropy. And so again, so maybe the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, but in that way. So that's really, really positive. But yeah, she's a tremendous influence, and has been like, I've learned more from her, and not just on issues of mental health, but I've learned more from her than I've ever taught her, to be honest. If you're, open, including around business stuff, around. So yeah, it's been a journey, but I'm really excited about highlighting some of the issues. As to say, men's mental health was top of the list,
right?
In terms of profiling, the issue, the challenges, the stigma, but also profiling companies like yours, individuals like you guys, that are giving a voice to those issues and bringing, leading by example to encourage others to, and of course your financial contribution, which is amazing and
appreciate that.
Super welcome.
Well, being vulnerable is probably the most challenging for any human.
Yeah.
Life's a 4-letter word for a reason.
I love that.
And I think there has to be a catalyst. I think, man or woman, we use things to mask. We do things to keep it at bay, whether that's alcohol, whether that's drugs, whether that's some sort of hobby, whether it's, right? And I think we spend a lot of time blaming others, seeking, some sort of reason as to why this has happened or what's going on. And, myself included, and, I've saw a therapist for probably 15 years. It probably took me 5 to even figure out empathy.
Yeah. Which is a huge force for good.
Right? As a man, as a male, you have like two emotions. I'm happy and I'm hungry.
I thought you were going to go somewhere else.
Well, it was an H, but yeah. With Shawn said this has to be a PG
That's
show
right,
today.
right.
So, I'm just trying to keep it at bay. But I think it's, learning to talk to someone
Yeah.
and going to a neutral party that is not judgmental is key. Right? Being able, Shawn and I are avid golfers, and, being able to walk with a friend and look over and go, man, you're not good.
Yeah.
Like, you okay? Like, it's been a few games and like, you're not okay. Right. And I think just that in itself opens the door to have a conversation. Yeah, I'm not sleeping. I'm up every day at 2:00 in the morning till 5, and then I'm buckled throughout the day. And have you thought about an antidepressant?
Yeah.
Have you seen your doctor in the
right.
last little while? Well, I'm not taking an antidepressant. Why not? You're okay with jamming 25 pints a week into you.
Yeah.
Well, what's an antidepressant going to do to you? Well, I'm too good for that. Are you?
If you were diagnosed with diabetes, would you take insulin?
Thank you.
This is exactly, it's mental health is health, and we don't treat it that way.
And so my therapist had spent a lot of time using the analogy that your emotions are a gas tank.
Yeah.
And once you drain it, you can't fill it back up.
Yeah.
And the only way to fill it back up is with a supplement.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go to the gym, we'll take protein, creatine, we'll do all those things, but heaven forbid you might have to take a happy pill to calm the brain down, to function and perform.
Yeah.
And you end up standing in your own way.
That's right.
All the time.
Yeah.
And it's not until you have some sort of catalyst, whether it's trauma, whether it's abuse, whether it's something that has happened that really pushes you off the edge, where you're like, shit, I got to do something here.
Yeah.
Right. And to this day, I still have buddies that come up and goes, you still taking something? I'm like, yeah. I take it one a day, every day. It's like an apple. I got to do it. And then,
And it's not a failure. It's not, it's like you break your leg, you put a cast on it.
Am I better to take the one pill, or am I better to go do some drugs or drink my brains out and mask it every day at lunch, right? It's not sustainable.
Yeah.
Right? So if you want to be high performing, if you want to achieve things in life, you got to do some things, and they got to start by helping yourself.
That's right.
Right? It's structure.
Yeah.
Day-to-day activities. What are you doing, right? We talk about the kids. The kids have this insane phenomenon happening in front of them with social media that we've never seen before.
No, exactly.
We have, and we're all blended, we're all divorced, we all have, gone through the trials and tribulations that way, and was nothing when you have a child and you're driving in the car. Here, watch the iPad, or here, we're sitting them down in front of movies, and they're watching Disney and going on, right? And now we're in this period where there's this ongoing keeping up with the Joneses, and everybody under the age of 25 can't pay attention to anything.
Yeah, it's a huge problem.
Right? Like, no, I don't know a child now, a teenager, that can watch a TV show.
Yeah.
It better be on their phone.
Yeah.
And they better be able to scroll through it in 10 seconds, because that's it.
Yeah, it's causing real damage.
It's quite significant, and and I'm just as guilty as the next, and I even catch myself when my life has deviated off the highway a little bit. I catch myself doing it.
Yep.
It's easy to blow some time on reels, because you don't have to think.
That's right.
You don't have to do anything, right? And
you can't be present with yourself either, right? Like, that's another thing. And I would, in response to your comment about pushing things down with either alcohol or drugs or whatever, the whole act of pushing things down is something we do, and I do, because it's like, and again, to go back to where we started, I got it. I'm in control. So I had it was a really interesting story, and it's still quite raw in my mind, but I was, so Kennedy was sick 5 years ago, was diagnosed 5 years ago. And
so you were 24.
I was 24 then.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Love
Okay,
that,
okay.
love that. No gray hair at
Yeah.
24. And I kind of didn't reach out for help because if I did, the dam would break, and I didn't want anyone. It was a private matter for her too, right? I wanted to protect her. But eventually I did. I sought help, whatever. Fast forward 5 years later to like last week, and I was meditating, and that's one of the things I do to be present. And frankly, partly because of all the reels I have to back away from. So in the morning, I do meditation, just a short one, and it usually involves, not to get into too much detail, but scanning of my body. So from the feet up, sort of self-love and reflection. And I got to, strangely enough, my throat and in my scan. And I started getting really choked up and like verklempt, if I can use that word. And I was like, and I said to myself, what is that? Like, where's that come? Because I was actually feeling really good. It was just good preventative mental health care with meditation. What is this choking? Not choking, but choking, getting choked up. And I said bravely, sit here for a bit. Feel that. What is, and I actually said to the universe, I'm available for you to show me what this is about. Which sounds kind of kooky, but anyway, I'm open. So I sat there and I choked. I continued choked up, started to cry, started going, okay, something, my body is telling me something. This is why we're talking about the connection between mind and body in our little campaign. And out of the blue, my thought was, you almost lost her. And you haven't grieved that. Because it was like, we're good.
It's a lot.
We got it.
That's
We got.
heavy.
We'll get the technical advice from the psychologist. We'll get her care. We get her medicated. We get
Yes.
da-da-da-da-da. And it was like push down. And then this choking up business was, and because I was available to it, because normally I'd be like, oh yeah, choking.
Shut it all
Let's
off.
go. No, that's a feeling I don't want to feel.
Yep.
But I was literally, and I leaned in and I said, I am available for whatever this is. I am here for this. It was a 10-minute meditation. It wasn't like a big, retreat or anything. And it was that you almost lost her. And I went, okay, we did. We almost lost her.
Well, the grieving.
But we didn't. And it was grief that I hadn't processed because don't want to go there because I cannot imagine the horror of that situation. And so therefore we won't process it,
And I find with grieving, especially, I'm a man, so I kind of always say, we're really terrible at that.
Yeah.
My father passed away a couple of years ago, and I struggled in the beginning, I was sad, I was doing this. But then here we are years later. Now I actually enjoy the grieving process of him because every song that he listened to, every, whether it was a certain type of baking or a dessert or the Blue Jays. My dad would watch 1,000 freaking Blue Jays games. And I'd be like, I'm not watching baseball. I'm not watching baseball. What have I been doing in the last 3 weeks? I'm watching baseball.
Yeah.
Yes, it's because it's on and they're going to the World Series, but it's dad.
It's your dad.
Kind of a nice memory, right?
It's a nice memory.
Yeah.
So I had a friend yesterday I was chatting with, and they had said that they had just lost their father 2 weeks ago. So we started talking about it. And so I said, some of the weird things that are going to happen are like favorites on your phone. My dad is on the top of my list.
Yeah, you're going to see him.
I'll change that.
Every day.
And so I said to myself, okay, what are you going to do with this? You're going to delete it?
Yeah.
Does that signify something? Is that, I'm like, no, leave him there.
Yeah.
Leave it there. Stare at. All right, he's there.
Feel it, right?
Feel it. Move on.
Yeah.
I'll go back to my sports analogy. So we're watching the baseball game the other night, and the boys are like, the Blue Jays win. All the Mariners are sitting in the dugout. And the boys said to me, why are they sitting in the dugout? I said, because they have to feel the pain.
That's right.
They must remember this moment. Yep. This is training that you don't ever want to feel this again or use it as a whole lot of motivation to excel.
And we don't do that enough. We do not let ourselves sit in it. And even, this is one of the things I learned from my daughter, is like when she's in that way, she's like, Mom, I have to sit in it. I have to feel it. I can't hide. Because she was getting it. She was drinking a lot when she was to numb the pain she was in. And she's like, no, I know I have to feel that. And that's one of the things, as I said, that she taught me. So whether you're a man, a woman, a kid, it doesn't matter. We have, and I love this part of the discussion, because we are in a society that, like, quick fixes, numb it, hide it. As I said to my sisters when I finally broke down and said, I'm dealing with this with Kennedy, and I was like, I'm afraid to tell anybody, not because I'm embarrassed or stigmatized or anything like that, but I'm afraid I'm going to break if I tell somebody something. If I say, I don't think I can handle this, I will fall to pieces. And of course I didn't. In fact, I got stronger because I leaned on my two sisters and my mom. But that instinct to say, numb it, push it down, put the dam up, put the armor on, whatever the analogy is that you want to use, is actually the absolute opposite of what we need to do. And that's why you go back to your stories,
Sure.
Shawn, of being that courageous leader to say, I'm having a problem here, or, it's okay. You're still a man. You're still a hunter.
You can do
still
all.
got
You
that
can
value.
do all of that, right? Like you can do
It's so
all of what you're
important.
both talking about, but still be vulnerable. Like that, I really do believe in order to get over some of the pains that we've had before and these traumas. Like in my case, I've shared a bit of those. But you have to give yourself. You almost have to have an experience with yourself. You need to be looking at yourself, seeing the pain, seeing yourself in pain, and just allowing those to percolate. Because if you don't, they just stay with you. Like they'll just
That's right.
literally, you'll just drag those suitcases along the rest of your entire life.
Yep.
And at one point, you say, "I don't want to carry those suitcases anymore. It's not fair to everybody around me." So you need to have an experience with yourself. Allow those to kind of percolate up. Just deal with them. Sometimes you're going to be sad. Sometimes you're going to be mad. Sometimes you're going to have regrets. You're going to have wishes like, I wish I hadn't handled that way, or I'm ashamed of who I was then and not now. But it's okay to let those kind of come to the surface.
And then give yourself grace.
Give yourself grace, and then the whole act of doing this on a regular basis, like you said, putting your armor on. Like Ryan, my friend I mentioned earlier, he always, like, this is when it really clicked for me, is that he would call this, because again, I think most military and police people, would they don't leave the workplace without putting their armor on. They put their duty belt.
Literally.
They put their duty belt on every day. The last thing they do before they close their locker is they put their bulletproof vest on. Then they have their weapon and they walk out the door and they do some incredible things. But they don't leave without putting their armor on. So when I was going to having my chats with kind of an accountability with Ryan, and he'd be like, "Are you putting your armor on every day?" And I'd be like, "Okay, let's talk about that." So he'd say, "Okay, your armor is going to be, did you get 8 hours sleep?
Different kind of armor, right? Different definition.
Are you drinking enough water?
Yeah, I love it.
Are you eating right?
Are you drinking?
Are you meditating?
Yeah.
Are you meditating? Have you done exercise? Right?
It's a healthy armor.
Have you spent 5 or 10 minutes being grateful? Just sitting and just sitting there and saying, I'm thankful. Like in my meditation every morning, I do the same act of gratitude. And I think what it's allowed me is it's opened up my thinking and my life to realize that even if there's hardships and stuff you regret, there's a lot to be thankful for.
Okay,
it's pretty hard to leave the house. I can assure you this: if you do a cold plunge, you meditate, and you spend 5 minutes just thinking about being grateful, it's a game changer. Because how is the next thing that you do, how is it possibly going to be negative or received negatively? So for Ryan and his advice, that's putting your armor on. So what I would keep reminding myself is to put my armor on. And it really aligns with, again, we're talking about like the masculinity and this, the desire to, well, again, it doesn't have to come from power.
Yeah.
Strength is actually being vulnerable. Strength is actually putting your armor on and doing these exercises. It doesn't have to be, it's not just physically strong. It's also emotionally strong.
Yeah, I love that. I love, because I thought you were going to say, armor for me, putting up your armor it's your perfectionism. It's your, nothing's going to bother me. It's like, all these negative elements of armor. But instead of saying, no, I'm actually armed with these really healthy habits.
Right.
That you're right. And if I meditate, and even the day I started to cry, I finished and I was so refreshed. The energy I got from that. And it just started, it made for such a good day.
Or you're healing a bit, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'd done some executive training with Arbavita. It's a local place that, for executives, and we talked a little bit about bringing meditation into the workplace as a leader. So I had asked at one point, well, how do I possibly bring this whole meditation and mindfulness journey from me up to now as being personal? So how do I reflect that into business ownership? So her advice to me was, well, you're setting an example with your employees, whether that's how you run your meetings, whether it's your communication, whether it's how you treat others within the confines of your work. You're showing them, just like we talked earlier about showing your children, and you're setting an example. You can set an example as a leader in your workplace, but also your community. And kind of what we're talking about today, it's not just giving people grace and showing them how to communicate, but by setting an example to say, hey, we can help with a donation. We can help step up. And if to your point, Carmen, if we can't do a donation, at least we can say, you know what, I'm going to be brave enough to talk about this so that I can bring others together that might be interested in doing the same thing.
That's right.
It doesn't have to stop with a simple no. It can be a yes. Let's help. Let's come together.
Yeah, exactly. And the Royal is benefiting from this. If I can take it back to my main kind of why in all of this, my main is broader than the Royal, obviously, but that hospital and there's a research institute as well. They're doing such amazing work. As I said before, without getting into too many details, it has been on a bit of a journey in terms of leadership challenges, and we have an amazing team of executive leaders, 3 boards, all with different sort of orientations, of which I'm on one, that are all pulling in the same direction for the community. And so you can't be involved in that organization without saying, wow, we're helping them navigate through some of the challenges that they've had. But they're doing, and I don't consider myself a religious person, but the phrase in my mind that pops up, they're doing God's work. Right. They're there, that meets that public interest value of mine, that this is maybe not a client, but they are there to serve a public need that is so desperately needed in our community. We don't actually have a well-functioning mental health care system in Ontario, in Canada. It's fragmented, it's bits and pieces, and what I see happening at the Royal is an amazing commitment to building a system. And the time is right. Like our leader, our CEO of the hospital, Cara Vaccarino, is a tremendous leader. Our CEO of the foundation, Chris Ide, is awesome, one of my favorite people. Both human beings of stellar capacity and humanity. And we're all kind of, whether we're talking at the board level, or whether we're talking at the executive level, or whether we're talking with donors, we're all kind of going, the time is now. Like this is our moment. And, the biggest example I would say is, I don't know if you've seen the announcements. It was in the paper. We announced it at our leaders' breakfast a couple weeks ago. We are 25 years after the Mike Harris government shut down the emergency rooms for psychiatric care. Everything was, taken away, put into the mainstream medical system, which was just, we know now, just the wrong thing to do. We're opening up an urgent care clinic, an urgent care center at the Royal. And so this time next year, we will have a walk-in clinic just for psychiatric reasons. You'll still have the emergency rooms, you'll still have admittance, but it is one of the biggest contributions that we can do for our community, that when the board finally approved it, and the foundation has been a big donor for that, public donors as well, the board applauded, because it was like, we've gone through different changes, different issues of governance there, and we're so on the right path right now. But my God, the excitement when the board took that vote, and you just go, man, we're getting there. We're so really compelling, ask to your audience, and again, big thanks to you guys to, this is work. This isn't just an investment. Like, we all give to charity in different ways. This is a cause. This is a movement where, we just have been underserving people with mental illness and addictions for so long. And we're at the point where I think we've got a really awesome convergence of stigmas coming down. Leaders are talking about it. where, money is coming to the fore. We've got a vision for how this is going to work. And so, let's just jump on board and be part of it. So
Amazing.
That's sort of my big why at the end of the day. And, we'll just keep going.
Well, the city of Ottawa and all of us are very thankful that there's people like you that are stepping up.
Oh, thanks.
And we very much applaud and appreciate and thank you for being on the show today.
Amazing leadership.
And it was a really great chat, and I could definitely see having another chat with you in the near future. But again, we really appreciate you taking the time today.
Well, I really appreciate it, and I'm totally chuffed to be here. Like, really, really fun to talk to you guys.
Wonderful chat.
And again, I will just underscore, the gratitude we have for Isivda for its donation and actually for giving us this platform as well to talk about it. And
It's been our pleasure.
And your friendship is very valuable too. So
if you're a small business owner, entrepreneur, if you're hearing this and you're thinking, wow, this really resonates with me. I love this story and the passion. I want to help.
Yeah.
I want to do what I can.
Yeah.
What's the next step for someone?
Reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's the best way to go. We're going to be, so Carmen Abela, I don't know what does LinkedIn have handles? I don't know. But anyway, find me on LinkedIn. You'll see me there. And we'll get you involved in whatever way you want to get involved, either as a donor, as a volunteer, because we're always looking for good volunteers for the Royal. But there's also something, and I can't go into too much detail yet, but my next little step in my world, I'm still going to keep consulting, but I'm working with a couple of people to build out, I'm going to call it a community of leaders that care about some important things. So it's not fully fleshed out yet, fully gelled, but there's opportunity for us to continue to work as small businesses together, to learn, to contribute. So things will be coming. So stay connected, and we will always take your money if you want to give money, for sure. But we'll also take your time and your support and your amplification. So whoever might be interested, that's the best way to get me.
Thank you for being so open with us, sharing your story. Agree with Corey. What an opportunity for us, and great leadership. Thank you.
Thanks very much,
Thanks,
guys.
Carmen.
Really appreciate it.